Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm very glad to be able to sit down with Dr. Mo Dong of CELER today. He is their founder, he is their lead developer, and I'm just really happy to be able to have this opportunity. So Mo, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting. Yeah.
Highly appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Yeah. So you have quite a pedigree, quite an intimidating pedigree. So for people watching, just tell us who you are.
So hi everyone, Mo from CELER. I co-founded the project with 4 of my co-founders, and CELER is a layer 2 scaling platform that are building on existing blockchains to make blockchains extremely fast, extremely cost efficient to use, and while at the same time maintain the secure and trust-free nature of blockchain platforms.
So the focus of CELER is taking a blockchain that is already there, is already secure, and helping it scale to meet whatever solutions it likes. Generally, when we're talking about that, you guys started off building on Ethereum, and the big thing with Ethereum, obviously, is smart contracts and DeFi.
Of course, yeah.
And that requires a lot of throughput, a lot of transactions.
Yep.
And you want to be able to do that in a way that works, that works to scale.
That's right.
That's the point of CELER.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah.
So how, without losing me in the weeds with the technicals.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
How does that work? How does this second layer solution on Ethereum help with scaling?
Yeah. So, in general, second layer solution is building on existing blockchains. One way to think about this is like basically, today everyone is trying to treat the blockchain as a central processing layer. You throw every kind of transactions, be that like a money transfer, smart contract transactions, DeFi transactions, anything. Decentralized exchange, everything and anything is on Ethereum layer 1 right now. But because the Ethereum layer 1 is running on this consensus engine, which is fundamentally limited by the communication overhead between different nodes in a decentralized world, there's no way that it can exceed a certain level of throughput and the latency that can be used by mass adoptions, right? So the general premises of layer 2 is basically to say, okay, how about let's take a different approach. Let's think about layer 1 not as throwing everything onto layer 1, but we basically treat layer 1 as adjudication layer. We treat layer 1 as a courthouse. And in normal cases, we don't go to courthouse to sue anyone like every day, right? So we just do our business, and we have a mutual trust in the process. So layer 2 is like that. Layer 2 is taking a cautiously optimistic approach by assuming most of the time the participants in the interaction are going to be cooperative, but in the interaction process, all the evidence of the interactions are retained, so that if one of us is trying to behave maliciously, the other parties can go to the blockchain to bring justice to the malicious party.
Right.
So that's kind of like how the layer 2 overall process looks like, and yeah.
I think that's a good analogy, especially with kind of the scaling debate or the scaling issue that we've been having over the last couple of years in cryptocurrency, centered around Bitcoin and Ethereum, obviously. The reality, and I do agree with you, for the majority of transactions, we don't need the security of Bitcoin, but we need the option to go there, or the security of the base layer of whatever chain we're talking about. The majority of things that are going to be happening are going to be cooperative, are going to be just not require that level of hardcore.
So I think one thing to note is that the security level is still exactly the same.
Okay.
Because it's just like we're taking a fast path, and when a fast path doesn't work, we can always revert to the slow path, and the entire security guarantee still remain untouched, basically.
So it's similar, like we're going to take a slightly relaxed approach. If anything looks fishy, though, right back over to the hardcore.
That's right.
Yeah. Because we want to make sure that everything is operating appropriately. Great. So, what kind of what projects is this helping right now? Who's building with CELER?
Yeah, definitely. So, CELER is extremely good for interactive applications where you need extremely low latency and high level of interactiveness between people in value transfer. Some use cases including micropayments, decentralized financial market with derivative trading, high liquidity derivative trading, and also this kind of conditional payment market where you can, I can send you a conditional payment that conditionally depends on what's the weather tomorrow, for example, off-chain, entirely privately. Yeah.
I'll take that bet. It's going to be sunny.
It's going to be sunny, yeah. We're in California, aren't we?
Yeah.
And of course, another key thing that we are very focused on is gaming. And by gaming, I mean specifically a very niche market in the skill-based real money gaming, eSport gaming market. And we just recently launched the world's first ever eSport blockchain gaming platform on iOS App Store.
Yeah.
So where you can play games that compete with anyone in the world and win some crypto prizes in ETH, in DAI, and in many other tokens as well.
Great,
Yeah.
great. And that's the first blockchain esports.
That's literally the first blockchain eSport game ever.
That's cool, man. What's the game like?
So it is a gaming platform, and the game developer can build their game on top of these gaming platforms. There are games like Candy Crush, like games, and there are this kind of a more of a sport game, and we'll have some bowling game, card game coming up. Basically.
Yeah, World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah, Warcraft is definitely in the scope, but it's definitely something in the future. So right now it's kind of a more focused on the hyper-casual esport part. Yeah.
Cool, man. Cool. So something that I'm on a kind of a journey to understand lately is, I approach the space, and I always have, as a Bitcoin maximalist. My primary concern has always been on liberty and security and giving people that come from my economic background, which is the bottom of the low, an opportunity to do well with their lives, right? And my main concern is I think the problem is not centralization of equity. I think the problem is centralization of education. Right? People just need to understand how money works, how finance works, and how to build a plan for their life. And I was dismissive of a lot of projects at first, but over the last year or so, I've learned a lot about Ethereum and DeFi. So can you just kind of explain that to me a little bit, like a very top down kind of approach, like what is DeFi? What is it supposed to do, and how is that making people's lives better?
Yeah. So for DeFi, I think the concept starts very nicely. That we want to kind of have a way to from a high level bank down banked, right? So like have a way for people to do savings on blockchain, to earn interest on blockchain by issuing loans, to have money market on blockchain that is very decentralized and democratized. And these things are all great concepts, and I firmly believe the DeFi economy and the DeFi community is definitely moving towards that direction finally. But recently, I have been a little bit kind of as you mentioned, I completely agree with your sentiment on the empowering of people using the decentralized and blockchain technology. But recently, if we look at all the DeFi ecosystem, the core of DeFi is something called over-collateralized loan today. Like basically, you put in $100 worth of ETH and you get $50 of DAI back. Right. So what is that? Well, that is basically pawn shops. Right, so like it is the most primitive way of financing that you pawn something in the pawn shop and get some cash and take that cash back and get your stuff back.
Right.
So that, however, is very limiting in my opinion because you have a ceiling here because the total amount of money in the DeFi ecosystem cannot exceed the collateral, right? So you cannot exceed the collateral, and therefore it has kind of almost a cap in growth that worries me a lot. That this is not like something that going to have a mass adoption or mainstream adoption because of the cap, and but what's challenging here is that if we think about today's financial system, where we go to bank and the bank gave us a loan, we are collateralizing something. We are collateralizing our credit, and a credit is basically a form of income flow. Right, so we're basically saying that, okay, we're collateralizing our future income flow, so this bank knows that probably like our future income will just directly flow to repay the loan. But today, to enable that or to recreate that on blockchain, I think it's hopeful, but does take a long time. Because now we need to kind of have an identity solution on blockchain to be able to testify that this income flow will automatically repay the loan in a more efficient way. That, I think, takes a very, very long time to build and kind of trying to recreate the modern financial system from the ancient pawn shop. Like pawn shop came out like in 3,000 years ago. And then bank came out like in about 1,500 years ago. That 1,500 year gap is where we are right now.
Gotcha.
And how fast we can bridge that, I mean, God knows, but yeah.
That's the challenge we're facing.
Yeah, that's the challenge we're facing, yeah.
And again, just to make sure I've got you correct, what you're saying the problem is because of the way that the over-collateralized system has been set up on the Ethereum DeFi economy,
Right.
there's a limit because you can only pull out roughly half, 60% of what you put in. And because that's just not going to scale financially to enough people that are going to need loans, need money, need to participate in the economy. And on top of that, you're talking about, all this money moves around. You're going to loan it back out. You're going to put it into to DAI bonds. You're going to put it into DAI securities, things of this nature. All things that are going to generate interest and be used for all the purpose that we use for regular economy now. It's just not going to be able to scale. So the solution is obviously either a way to have one-to-one, or even, correct me where I go astray, over-loaning or loaning on margin essentially, which is the goal we have now, but ensuring that we're not, that money is going to be repaid back.
Yes, like basically have a way to define your income or your future capability to repay on blockchain.
So a credit score kind of.
A credit score, yes.
But what's interesting about potentially what we could do with blockchain is that, take something like Blockstack, for example, right? So Blockstack is like, it's a whole thing. Every website you access, you have an identity, right? But it could be any project. If your income stream is being received in cryptocurrency, right? You could sign a smart contract from the smart contract that's paying you that basically says, okay, because I'm now accepting this transaction, which is a loan, I agree that for the next 12 months, X amount of the funds coming from this smart contract are going to be kicked back.
That's exactly what we need in the future. But right now, this is a little bit hard because that touches like a payroll, that touches like how you handle company finances. It touches so many things to kind of have that picture be complete.
Sure.
But yeah, that's definitely the way that in the future that things should go, and that's how we can kind of jump out of this scalability cap of DeFi and become like more close to the modern financial system while removing the overhead of the middleman.
You got me kind of excited by that concept. That I like solving problems, because in that example that I just gave you, it seemed to me the issue would be obviously, well, what if the initial smart contract, which is the payroll smart contract, what if it stops paying?
Right.
Right? So it could be that the smart contracts could be written in such a way that there is essentially a reserve account, a reserve address, where those funds are time locked.
That's right.
They cannot move, and the smart contract that issues payment on a time scale. Like, are there enough funds in there to pay X for 12 months? If so, those funds are frozen for 12 months. They cannot move, and only if that freeze is in could that second smart contract, which is responsible for validating that the loan can be repaid, will execute.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Something like that. Definitely.
Any developers that want to work with me, that's my idea. Venture capitalists too. I'm just kidding. Cool. Again, you said that sounds like where we want to go, but it's just programming it? Is that kind of the difficulty right now? Or?
No, I think there are a lot of regulatory constraints attached to this. Once you start to enter this kind of a credit region that is not the kind of over-collateralized loan, in one way or another, you need some oracle to work. You need some external information to make this work.
Right.
Now, how to kind of make a reliable oracle network to work? That is something that is extremely challenging, and and also not only on the technical front, but also on the regulatory front. Okay, if this oracle is finally determining the loan, then does this oracle need a banking license, for example? Does this oracle need any kind of money transmitter, money service business licenses for that? And what is the regulatory environment for that look like? So this is an uncharted area that we have to go through this uncharted part to actually reach mass adoption for the DeFi particularly. But on the other hand, gaming, for example, is much easier to reach mass adoption.
Right.
Because it's very easy, a very straightforward concept. Everyone plays game, and there is no regulatory constraints attached to it. In the case of what we have building the scale-based real money game, it actually has very clear guidance and a very clear kind of regulation around that. that in US, 41 different states allows a skill-based eSport game with real money involved. So that's actually why we, instead of choosing the DeFi niche, but choose to focus on the gaming niche, and specifically eSport gaming niche, which itself is a very fast-growing business sector to focus on in the kind of initial vertical for CELER Network's applications.
Yeah. So, and correct me where I go astray, you're talking about building the solution for game, building the DeFi solution, focusing on gaming and implementing it there, and when the time is right, strike.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to need, if I could just get an advisor role for these ideas that I'm what's CELER working on right now? What's next on the horizon for CELER?
Yeah. So we launched the alpha version of the mainnet end of July, and we are launching the 1.0 version of the mainnet by the end of this, towards the end of this year. And the 1.0 version of the mainnet will be able to allow people to start to do staking, to kind of have nodes running in the network connecting to each other, and have a kind of a very decentralized ecosystem built around it. And we are also focusing on different kind of verticals, including gaming, including micropayment services, and we're expanding on that. But at the same time, this particular vertical that we just cut into, we just start to set our foot in the real world, in the real mass adoption, and we really hope to use that kind of as an entry point. So we cut deep into the mass adoption market and kind of expand from there. It's almost like when Amazon was first founded, that was kind of an online bookshop, basically.
Right.
That's a similar concept. When CELER first started to see adoption, it is an online eSport platform. But beyond that, it can be anything.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
We're in really interesting times right now in cryptocurrency. Obviously, we had the big 2017 blow off, the 2018 winter, where everybody thought, this is it, that was it. In 2019, a lot of people are poking their heads out of the snow, thinking that it's spring now. Where do you think we're at with cryptocurrency?
I think I'm relatively optimistic right now because 2017 was obviously the expectation and the reality is way too much. But right now, I think the technology pieces are coming together to a point where in some niche market, in some niche areas, blockchain actually can have a significant advantage comparing to traditional financial means. And if we have that, what it means is that we will have a sustainable business model around that. And if we have just any kind of a sustainable business model, it's just like on the kind of a wild field, there's one single grass coming out of the soil, and that grass may become kind of a whole grassland, in time due, basically. And I think we're at that moment that one or several small business niches can have sustainable model by using blockchain technology that beats the traditional financial ecosystem, and from there, we can grow. So I'm really looking forward, especially in 2020, that there is a kind of a provable and sustainable business model built around this.
We're facing a lot of challenges too, obviously. There's regulatory uncertainty. There is the concerns with US dollar tether, obviously, that's kind of weighing heavily over the entire market. There's the launch of Libra. Do you have any kind of opinions or thoughts on those? What do you think is maybe the most interesting thing happening in cryptocurrency right now, or the biggest threat?
Let's see. I would say the biggest threat is still, how we're merging into the traditional ecosystem, and Libra is kind of like example of that. Even though Facebook might not be the best one to propose this whole thing,
right?
But yeah, I think definitely basically how we're connecting with the traditional ecosystem is definitely going to be something challenging because we need to coexist with the traditional financial market, the traditional financial means for quite a long time to, I would say, kind of silently improve that so that it transform instead of try to kind of actively kill it right now. Otherwise, it's it's not a good battle. Basically, there's old Chinese saying that if you drop water on a stone for 1,000 years, that water will penetrate that stone.
Yeah.
Right? So this is how I think this is going to go. Instead of a kind of an instant change where like everyone just get a shock and wake up the other day, it's everything blockchain. It's not going to happen like that. So how to survive and co-survive with the traditional ecosystem is something that I think is extremely important.
Any final thoughts?
No, I'm really just really looking forward to adoption. Like we need mass adoption. We need even just like in a small niche market, a sustainable adoption model. Once we have that, we have roots. Right now, like we're kind of seeds, just like floating in the wind. Maybe except the Bitcoin. Bitcoin have a pretty solid market fit, but like
pretty solid roots.
Yeah, pretty solid roots. But other than that, the broader blockchain ecosystem definitely need to find some more roots so we can become like a more flourish and prosper community.
Well, Mo, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very grateful, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.